It has been a wild week, and it's only Tuesday, but Donald Trump has sent the country hurling into a constitutional crisis for deciding to defy the Supreme Court of the United States and also seek to, I don't know, figure out whether or not he can deport US citizens to an El Salvadorian gulag. Is anyone paying attention? Because according to mainstream media and their coverage today, not so much. So if we're in the midst of the rise of the first American dictator and no one's around to report on it. Is it actually happening? Oh, I'll tell you, it's fucking happening. And everybody needs to be paying attention. Welcome to the Danielle Moodie Show, dear friends. Let's jump in. I have to tell you that yesterday was not a good day for me. It was not a good mental health day. After watching Donald Trump sit inside of the Oval Office of the People's House and suggest within earshot, it was not a hot mic issue. Donald Trump wanted Americans and the world to hear him say that Nayib Bukele, the cool El Salvadorian dictator, needs to busy himself with creating at least 5 more of his, I don't know, concentration camps in order to what? House the homegrowns. That's what Donald Trump said. And you would think, dear friends, that the reaction to such a horrific anti-American, anti-democratic statement would be met with, oh, I don't know, gasps, horror, shock. No, it was met with laughter. Because that's where we are. Donald Trump is standing before the American people and saying exactly what he wants to do, how he wants to do it. And it is as if mainstream corporate media has their head up their ass. I won't even say it's buried in the sand. It is literally up their ass. Is it because they are all collectively deciding to do a CYA? Because I would think that there would be no bigger news story than the president of the United States telling a dictator that he needs to build more prisons so he can send American dissenters there. But alas, folks, nope, not really being covered. But before we jump in, dear friends, I am doing my best to try and reach 25,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you have not subscribed or liked or commented on this channel, please do so and share it right now as you're watching with your friends on your platforms. But do consider subscribing for free to this channel to help me grow my subscribers to 25,000. All right, now back to your regularly scheduled dystopian reality. Over 24 hours, Trump makes his authoritarian style vision plain. This was not the front page of the New York Times. No, this is from the Maddow blog on MSNBC. Every once in a while, the president has a day, a single 24-hour period in which his authoritarian vision comes into sharp relief. And I will tell you, dear friends, let's just run through the timeline because it wasn't just yesterday. There was a lead up that began on Sunday. Voters either didn't know, didn't care, or didn't believe the Republicans' rhetoric. And Trump won a second term anyway, at which point he continued to add to this vision. Just 1 month into his second term, for example, the president described himself as a, quote, king. Remember, he posted that on his Broke Down social media platform, which came just 4 days after he similarly declared, quote, he who saves his country does not violate any law. Well, to be honest, does it matter if you violate the law? Because the Supreme Court in the summer of 2024 decided that Donald Trump needed presidential immunity. The other 44 presidents before him didn't need it because, well, they weren't criminals. But Donald Trump was gifted presidential immunity by the Supreme Court in July of 2024. So he who violates the law, what law are you violating, buddy? They said that if you are in office and doing it, well, that's a presidential act. But I digress. Here's the timeline. Sunday, April 13th, in the evening, in response to CBS News' 60 Minutes, airing a couple of segments that he didn't like, the president accused the news program of, quote, fraud, airing, quote, defamatory segments, and being a, quote, political operative that has engaged in, quote, unlawful and illegal behavior. He added that CBS should lose its broadcast license and, quote, pay a big price, while calling on the FCC to, quote, impose the maximum fines and punishment because the network displeased him. Can we think for a moment at who the real political operative, if it were to be a named station, would be? It would be Fox. Because Fox has acted as an extension of the Donald Trump campaign and now as an extension of his cabinet since he was elected the first time. They have done everything to smear Joe Biden, to smear Democrats with their lies. Can you imagine what would have happened if Joe Biden, while president, had said that he is going to call up the FCC and see whether or not he can, I don't know, levy the maximum fines for all of the actual lies that Fox had spread, not only about him, but his son Hunter. Because you see, folks, Biden would have actually had a case because Fox is the widest watched network, unfortunately, has viewerships of 60, 70 million people that are tuning in. And because of Fox, they largely believed that the 2020 election was stolen, that Donald Trump is their savior and Christ, and that essentially Democrats are a satanic cult. So if you were to actually use the power of the presidency, in my opinion, Fox should have never been allowed inside of the White House briefing room. And also, they should have been investigated, not just by independent outlets and businesses that they had defamed and then had to pay upwards of nearly $1 billion because of Tucker Carlson's lie about the 2020 election. No, that there should have been an investigation, but Democrats refuse to do anything that could look like, oh, I don't know, actual action or retaliatory actions, when in fact, Republicans have been distorting the information coming out into every single sphere. the blogosphere, the live stream sphere, YouTube, etc., social media, everywhere, to alter the perception of what people think about Donald Trump, Democrats, democracy, etc. But you didn't see Joe Biden do that. No. And that, honestly, is to our detriment. So Donald Trump now coming out and saying that he is going to investigate whether or not CBS should lose their broadcast license because he doesn't like that they air the truth is wild shit. And again, constitutional crisis, because freedom of the press, the only industry that was actually written into the Constitution because it being the foundation of democracy. Where are Democrats? Where are the responses to this threat? Let me go on. Shall we? We shall. So also on Sunday, because apparently he doesn't rest on that day either, Sunday, April 13th in the evening, asked about Russia's latest deadly attack in Ukraine, Trump made excuses for Putin, saying they made a mistake. Yeah, I don't know. I make mistakes, but my mistakes don't end up with people, what's dead. Right. They don't end up with murder. Just, whatevs. So now we roll into Monday, yesterday. Monday, April 14th, midday. Trump claimed his administration lacks the authority to bring back Kilmar Abrego Garcia, whom the president improperly sent to an Salvadorian prison despite court orders, instructing the administration to facilitate, we'll talk about that word in a minute, Abrego Garcia's return. Now, here is the thing. The Supreme Court, in their 9-0 ruling, said that the administration must facilitate the return of Mr. Garcia. Now, in the Oval Office, Stephen Miller said that the ruling was in favor of the Trump administration because it said clearly that the courts do not have the authority to intervene in the president's foreign affairs. That is not what the fuck the ruling said. But also, here is once again SCOTUS playing footsies with dictators because what they didn't do was be explicit about the timeline for facilitation. And once again, just giving this administration the benefit of the doubt, like they are actually going to comply. This is what has happened to careen us into the constitutional crisis that we are currently in. Also, on Monday, April 14th, midday, Trump's White House blocked Associated Press journalists from attending a presidential event despite a court ruling instructing the president and his team to restore the AP's access. So let me remind you, why was the AP one of the most accredited journalistic outlets that everyone in the world uses, right? Why were they thrown out of the White House briefing room? Oh, because they refused to go along with Donald Trump's, imagination and refer to the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America. Because you see, the AP isn't just inside of the United States. The AP takes its journalistic integrity seriously because, like I said, it is a global outlet with offices everywhere. And nowhere other than in Donald Trump's random fucking Sharpie run and executive order Has there been any policy put forward that would actually make this law? So the AP is like, no, we're going to continue to refer to it as what it is, and what it is known as around the world, the Gulf of Mexico. Because of that, they haven't been allowed in the White House briefing room. Now, here's a suggestion, right, that I have for all media outlets, the ones that are not Fox. Maybe, just maybe, if all of you banded together and said, guess what? We're not showing up, right? Or we are going to ask the questions that the AP would ask. And this is a question from the AP. This is a question from the AP. Or not show up at all and so show some fucking solidarity inside of the industry. Maybe this could be a bigger story, one that is about this president of the United States thwarting the freedom of the press. But instead, everyone is just operating in silos. Like, sorry, AP, better luck next time. There are ways that people can push back and push back together. And I just cannot, for the life of me, understand why this basic shit can't happen. I digress. Let's keep going with our timeline, shall we? Also, Monday, April 14th, midday. Midday was a very busy time yesterday. Trump said he's interested in sending American citizens to what? Salvadorian prisons, despite U.S. laws that prohibit such radicalism. You mean illegal shit, right? You mean just illegal shit. Monday, April 14th in the early evening, probably around the time that I started making a martini, because I was literally hanging on to my senses and to my mental health at that point. As part of his administration's offensive against higher education in the United States, Trump froze more than $2 billion in grants to Harvard University because the school refused to accept a series of outlandish demands the White House hoped to impose on the institution. Or, I can rephrase, the university decided not to bend the knee and to capitulate to the threats of a domestic terrorist. Just saying, words matter. So what was the response then? What was the response? Because there were some questions that were asked, but we know that, guess what? Who's really good at evading questions and, not answering? This administration. So, Attorney General dodges question on Trump proposal to jail U.S. citizens in El Salvador. Trump proposed that, quote, homegrown criminals should be deported, an idea that experts say is clearly illegal. None of us need a law degree to figure that out. So the U.S. president said, quote, homegrown criminals that push people into subways, that hit elderly ladies on the back of the head with a baseball bat when they're not looking, could be sent to El Salvador and imprisoned. And this, hold on to your hats, because what shocked the shit out of me is that the dumbest man on cable news, as my fellow co-host Andy Levy on The New Abnormal consistently refers to Jesse Waters as, it was Jesse Waters that asked Bondi the question about whether or not sending U.S. citizens to El Salvador was legal. Please hold for her response. These are Americans who he is saying have committed the most heinous crimes in our country. And crime is going to decrease dramatically because he has given us a directive to make America safe again. These people need to be locked up as long as they can, as long as the law allows. We're not going to let them go anywhere. And if we had to build more prisons in our country, we'll do it. Coming from a woman who is representing a man that was indicted how many times? How many times was Donald Trump indicted? Found guilty, right? Uh had federal charges brought against him. I'm sorry, Donald Trump has also had to pay out money to who? E. Jean Carroll, right? Who accused him of sexual assault. Donald Trump and everyone around him, from Mike Flynn to Roger Stone to his COO, they've all been in federal prison. To Steve Bannon, they've all done time. To his son-in-law's father, right? The elder Kushner was in federal prison. Like, you want to talk about criminal activity? You want to talk about those that have committed heinous crimes? How about the 1,600 people that Donald Trump pardoned who stormed our Capitol building, assaulted police officers, and defecated in the halls of Congress? There is absolutely no crime that you could commit in these United States that would warrant you to be sent to a foreign country to be tortured. But these are the ideas that are being floated by Donald Trump, who has shown over that short span of time that he no longer tends to follow the rule of law. And we know that the laws are only as good as the people that will follow them. And Donald Trump has said, nah, to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said, you need to bring this man back. He said, nope. Then he played a little game of who's on first in the Oval Office with Bukele, who's like, well, I can't bring him back, and it's not my responsibility, it's yours. Oh, no, it's not my responsibility, it's yours. Also, while Bukele was in the Oval Office, who without a suit, by the way, not, but we only admonish, right? War heroes like Zelensky, who are fighting for the sovereignty of their country for not wearing a suit, but cool dictators, nah, they're good. We don't bring that shit up. Bukele referred to Kilmar Abrego Garcia as a terrorist. Not one media outlet that was in that room pushed back. Donald Trump himself has again posted on social media lies about the over 200 men that did not receive due process. And now, folks, we are seeing pictures come out of this torture camp. As I said earlier today on Nerd Avengers with Mary Trump, that make the Gitmo pictures look like the Sears fucking catalog. This is all happening with our tax dollars. And I'm wondering where the fucking outrage is. The president of the United States is saying that anyone who he does not agree with, he is going to deport out of this country. And for those that say, well, then the courts will bring him back, there is an innocent man who, to be fair, to be sure, we do not know if Kilmar Abrego Garcia is alive or dead. We do not know that. because no information has been released about him other than the fact that he is there. But we don't know what condition he is in. Over the last 80 some odd days, Donald Trump and his administration have disappeared hundreds of people. Hundreds. And now he is threatening to disappear American citizens because he does not like what they say. I don't know about you, but alarm bells were set the fuck off for me yesterday. But then again, alarm bells have been set off for me since 2016 when he came down the escalator. So I'm sitting around wondering, what the fuck is it going to take for this country to halt any sort of business, to start a national strike? What is it going to take for people to realize that we are no longer safe? That is what had me in a downward spiral yesterday, is recognizing that every day that I turn on this microphone, every day that I put out a piece on Substack, is a day that I pray that there isn't going to be a knock at my door dragging me away, never to be heard or seen again. Folks, that is real shit. This is not hyperbolic shit anymore. A Tufts University student is sitting in the Louisiana Detention Center, Rumsia, for what? For co-authoring an op-ed in her school's newspaper. So, for everyone that is saying, oh, well, this too shall pass, the fuck it will. Every day, things get worse. And, oh, is Danielle just once again being hyperbolic? No, she is not. Homeland Security told U.S.-born immigration lawyer to leave country. Email to Massachusetts lawyer warned her to depart the U.S. immediately, even though removing U.S. citizens is illegal. Let me just pause and remind everybody. The Holocaust was legal. Apartheid was legal. Slavery was legal. Colonization was legal. If the president of the United States decides that you are a terrorist and a threat to national security, who the fuck is going to stop him? And what we are seeing now is that no one is. That the checks and balances that a small group of white men dreamt up when thinking about democracy could not have imagined the rise of a dictator, because my thought is they would have put in more false safes. But their assumption would have been that, well, if the courts don't got it, Congress got it. If Congress don't got it, the executive branch got it. What if they're all in cahoots? Which is the situation we have now. Then what? So, Massachusetts immigration lawyer who is an American citizen is speaking out after she received an email from Trump administration immigration authorities telling her she needed to leave the country. Nicole Misharoni described receiving an email on April 11th and that its heading was Notice of Termination of Parole. It is time for you to leave the United States, the email read. If you do not depart the United States immediately, you will be subject to potential law enforcement actions that will result in your removal from the United States. Misharoni told NBC Boston, at first, I thought it was for a client, but I looked really closely and the only name on the email was mine. She added, probably, hopefully, it was sent to me in error, but it's a little concerning. These are going out to U.S. citizens. Tell me again, we ain't got nothing to worry about. Tell me again, if Donald Trump is only going after the illegals. Tell me again that he's only going to deport the criminals. Who gets to decide who is a criminal and what is a criminal act? That is usually left to the courts. But Donald Trump is using the power of the pen and his social media platform to dictate public opinion and tell you that the hundreds of people you saw in the spectacle at the airport being loaded onto planes and being disappeared, oh, they were all terrorists. But come to find out through reporting from 60 Minutes that 75% of those that were shackled and loaded on these planes had no criminal record at all. And 22% of them had been caught shoplifting or some type of other low-level, nonviolent offense. Now these men are being housed in a notorious torture facility. Fluorescent lights kept on at all times, not permitted to go into the outdoors, not permitted to have proper food, movement, regularly beaten. And Donald Trump and this administration says, well, out of our hands. When the judge ordered, as the plane was in the air, to turn it around, they said, in international waters now, out of our hands. Supreme Court says, facilitate their return. Bukele looked into the cameras yesterday and said, I ain't doing it. And Donald Trump said, out of my hands. It's his decision. It's his country. Who am I to dictate? Give me a fucking break. If you know any bit of the history of the United States, you know how they dictate what happens in other countries. So, where do we go from here? What is it that we are supposed to do? Because this is another response from this administration. Reporter. There are laws on the book that make it a criminal offense to harbor illegal immigrants, like sanctuary state leaders have been doing. Do you think they should be prosecuted and possibly put in prison? Tom Homan, border czar. His response? Absolutely. And hold tight on that one because it's coming. A government official has just on camera in front of the country and the world, said that he is going to prosecute and jail other public officials for, quote, harboring undocumented people in sanctuary cities. Now, folks, take a moment. Do you remember who else made, quote, harboring innocent people a criminal offense? Nazi Germany with the Jews. Oh, and also, America during the Atlantic slave trade, that anyone who was caught harboring a runaway enslaved African could be lynched. What is old is new again. These are not empty threats. These are promises that this administration is making to intensify and create a climate of fear in this country. This is terrorism. Tell me if you've had a day since the inauguration where your cortisol levels are not going through the roof, where you are not like gasping, terrified by the headlines that you are reading. Tell me if there is a day that you have had over the nearly 100 days of this regime where you have not been nearly paralyzed with fear. That is terrorism. Even if you choose to take a break, it is this lingering feeling in the back of your mind. What are you missing? What is happening? Where I've begun to whisper in public, because who is listening? What could they do with this information? When are they going to pick up a media person and make an example out of them? When is a network going to be shut down? Signaling that free speech is absolutely done. We are living in a climate of terror that has been constructed and orchestrated by this regime. For those that have said we are sliding out of democracy, we have slid. We are done. It is gone. This is where we are. And I am looking around, and there are only a handful of Democrats that are willing to do any fucking thing. Whether it's Cory Booker on the floor of the Senate for 25 hours, whether it's Bernie Sanders and AOC going into red districts and places and holding events, whether it's Jasmine Crockett and Maxwell Frost continuing to speak truth to power, folks, where is the collective action and vision by this administration, by Democrats towards this administration? They are acting as if they've been caught off guard. And I'm like, they wrote a fucking book. They wrote a book. They literally wrote a book and put it down on paper, bound it. And yet, Democrats are dumbfounded. If there is nothing to do because you don't have the power to pass policy, then what you do is speak to the American people to captivate the American imagination about what is happening and inspire them to action. You don't just sit around twiddling your fucking thumbs thinking that we'll get them in midterms. Are you insane? We are 3 months into this shit. There aren't going to be midterms. I cannot express that a fucking enough. And if they are going to be rigged beyond fucking belief. These people now in power are not giving that power up. And to think that all you have to do is wait until 2026 and all will be well because the American people will understand the dangers that we're in. Yo, not paying attention. And then you have this. I'm going to play this clip for you because today, Chris Van Hollen, who is a senator of Maryland, is talking to the press about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who is a man, Maryland man from his state. I want you to take a listen to how he is framing the constitutional crisis that we are in right now.
All the comments of President Bukele, and I look forward to meeting with him. I've requested to meet with him. I reached out to the ambassador here to ask to meet while he's here. But I've also made clear if we can't meet here, I do intend to go to El Salvador to discuss the release of this individual who is illegally detained. A Maryland man who's the father of 3 in a notorious prison in El Salvador. And I believe the president of El Salvador will recognize why it's important to allow him to return to the United States of America, because it is absolutely unjust and illegal to have this Marylander detained one more day in a notorious prison in El Salvador. Of course, President Trump could have just said, bring him home. Of course he could have done that. But this is an administration that has lied about Mr. Abrego Garcia, right? The vice president of the United States tweeted out that he had a criminal record. That was a lie. They're just lying. They've gotten caught lying. They don't want to admit it. And they have an obligation to bring him home. But I will say the president of El Salvador should not now take it upon himself to say that he is detaining him for one more day, because that is kidnapping. I understand that the Attorney General said that we would provide a plane to bring him home. So all the president of El Salvador has to do now is hand over and release an innocent man and let him come home to his family.
What kind of mealy mouth, weak shit was that? I'm sure that the president of El Salvador will understand that Mr. Garcia should be returned to his family. He literally sat in the Oval Office, looked into the cameras and said, I'm not letting that terrorist go. But you think, Senator Van Hollen, that you're going to roll up into El Salvador, which I'd like to see if he actually makes it there. And more importantly, not sure you'll return, sir. But the fact is that why are we still using euphemisms and playing politics and like word switches as if like we're not living in the upside down, as if like the constitutional crisis everybody has been isn't fucking here. What are you talking about? Oh, I'm certain Mr. Bukele will understand. He legit sat next to the president of the United States in the Oval Office and said, "Who gon' check me, boo?" And you sitting around talking about, "Oh, I'm waiting to hear from his office because I'd like to meet with him." He just met with the president who said he can do whatever the fuck he wants. You think he's going to turn around and listen to you? Y'all, this is the type of shit. This is the type of shit Democrats continue to do that make no fucking sense and have no bite whatsoever. I literally don't get it. I don't understand what Van Hollen thinks that he is doing. Nonetheless, not as if it matters, a court has temporarily blocked Trump bid to cancel legal status of 500,000 migrants. The program set to expire on April 24th aids migrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. Can anybody guess what those places have in common? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? Well, they're people of color who were permitted legal status under Joe Biden that now Donald Trump has revoked and is going to scoop those people up and either, oh, I don't know, deport them all to El Salvador. Maybe he'll send them back to their countries. I doubt that, though. But, you know, the courts, they said here, you got to halt. Just like they told you to turn the plane around. Just like the Supreme Court said to release Mr. Garcia. They're not listening. The judge has temporarily blocked the Trump administration's attempt to terminate a Biden-era program that granted legal status to migrants from Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Haiti. The ruling in federal district court in Boston prevents the wholesale shutdown of the program, which was set to expire on April 24th. It has allowed more than 500,000 people to legally enter and work in the U.S. since its inception. Unfortunately, dear friends, that doesn't matter. Laws don't matter to a dictator, to an autocrat. And that is where we are. So let me close out today before we jump into Town Hall Tuesday. So get your questions ready. And for those of you that are new, Town Hall Tuesdays, where you get to ask me any questions that you would like. I do my best to try and answer them. You type in the word question, all capital letters, and then your question. But before I jump into that, today on Substack, which if you have not subscribed to the Damn Digest, I highly recommend. And if you are looking for a way to support this show and me financially on a monthly basis, Substack is a wonderful place to do that because I do have membership, but also understand everything that I put out is free. So your donations, your paid subscriptions go a long way to help me be able to keep the lights on and continue to do the work that I do. So please do consider, if you don't want to do one-off super thanks and super stickers here, that you can sign up for a monthly subscription over at Substack, The Damn Digest. This is the piece that I put out today. Homegrown dissent, blue origin, and our very real constitutional crisis. Donald Trump stated in the Oval Office he wants more camps in El Salvador. Mainstream media didn't bat an eye. I went on to write this. Donald Trump's stunning request to Bukele comes on the heels of his administration defying the Supreme Court and making clear, regardless of their ruling, he has no intention of bringing Kilmar Abrego Garcia, an innocent man wrongly detained and deported, home, and Bukele has no plans on releasing him. You would think that this stunning defiance would be major news on the front pages of every paper, but instead we're focusing on the vanity project of Blue Origin and the appalling disconnect of a billionaire's wife, a pop star, and talk show host going to space for 10 minutes. If Blue Origin's flight isn't Don't Look Up, Come to Life, I don't know what is. My piece is up now on my Substack. Do check it out and consider subscribing and becoming a paid subscriber over on Substack. Again, I will never paywall my work because I believe that democracy dies behind paywalls. So anything that you are able to do, please do. Consider donating. All right. Now, my dear friends, it is time for Town Hall Tuesday. So let's All right. Question: do you think honorable military personnel will step up to protect our Constitution? Barb? I don't think so. Right? I don't think so. I mean, this is what the Nuremberg trials were all about, right? Good people following along, supposedly good people following along and doing bad things, because guess what? You decide not to follow an order that is coming down from on high. Remember that they have been gutting our military of people who swore an oath to the Constitution and not to Donald Trump. So do I think, just think about the fucking place that we are in, that it's like, first the courts will hold. First it was Democrats will do something. Then the courts will hold. Now we're hoping and praying that the military doesn't follow orders from the president in chief. I don't know. I don't think so. Question, Samara. Excuse me. I'm in the white person phase of unlearning and re-educating myself to be a better ally and a better fascism fighting machine. Good job, Samara. What books, Rex, do you have for people in this moment? Well, Samara, I believe that you watched my Black Panther series that is up here on YouTube. There are so many people whose books I would recommend. I would recommend W.E.B. Du Bois' Soul of Black Folk. I would recommend James Baldwin, The Fire Next Time. I would recommend Angela Davis's biography. I would recommend, I'm just thinking on the top of my head, Octavia Butler's work. I would recommend Jason Stanley's book on fascism. I would also recommend books by Ruth Ben-Ghiat, who also has a brilliant Substack. So yeah, I would recommend, if you are, as you say, a white person unlearning, I would recommend books by Black people, by brown people, by indigenous people. And I would start there. And then specifically with books on fascism, there are some incredible people that have been doing that work. Good question. Oh, Light Wolf. Danielle, how are you staying sane during all of this? I don't, folks, I will be honest. I am struggling at the moment. What I try and do to stay sane is I try and put out good content, right? I try and connect with my family, my friends, um, my girlfriend, like go and see art and, music and just like remind myself of the things that make us human, right? Because it is really easy to fall into despair. It is really easy um, to um, to just fall into hopelessness. And so, I try my best, but some days, like yesterday, I am unsuccessful. But then, I get back on the horse, get back on the mic, and we try again. But thank you for that question. Oh, that's funny. Doug, you have the most perfect skin, not a wrinkle to hint at the stress you are under. What is the secret? Well, black don't crack. That's part of the secret. And also, um, what do I use? Uh I use basic stuff like Aveeno scrubs on my face and this really nice. Oh, it's from Fresh. This rose toner that I use when I like also wipe off all the makeup and like take my face off, and I do regular masks. That's part of my self-care as well. But thank you for the compliment. Appreciate it. Also I have really good genes. You should see my mother. Um Gus, what do you think the American people's collective response will be if, when Trump refuses to leave office after the next presidential election? I don't know, Gus. Like, I don't know. Because my hope would that there would be some collective action way before 2028, right? Like, that's my hope is that, I want us to get to a place where I am not kidding, that there is a national strike that is being organized by union leaders, by movement leaders, that is in coordination, that says we are shutting this shit down. That is my hope. That's the only thing, in all honesty, that I think that is nonviolent, that could really throw an entire wrench in their plans for this fascist takeover, is to throw a stick in the wrench, a stick in this of the wheel of our economy. Shut this shit down. That's what I think. But I have no idea. I have no idea. But I really hope that folks are not waiting until 2028. Just like I hope that Democrats stop waiting for 2026 as if they think that that is going to happen. Vivian. OT, I am reading Kindred. What's your opinion? I have not read Kindred. I don't, and this is friends. This is another book by Octavia Butler. I have not read it. I think I started Kindred and it was really hard for me. The back and forth. So the premise of the book is that I believe, and Vivian, you tell me in the chat if I'm right, a Black woman wakes up and she is thrown back into the time of slavery. And like the book is her going back and forth in between slavery and like present day. And it was just like really hard for me to unpack. So if you're liking it, maybe I'll give it a go again. Oh, good. Folks are putting up some books for you, Samara. So check the chat. Anything by Bell Hooks, highly recommend. All About Love is a fantastic book by Bell Hooks. Oh, good. You guys are great. Politics of Heaven, Earl Shorris. Yeah, keep it coming. Samara also. Timothy Snyder. I couldn't think of his friggin' name. Snyder, Stanley, and Hannah Arendt. Also really good. Soul on Ice by Eldridge Cleaver. Yep. These are very good. So take those to heart. Question. Do you think that the leadership of the Democratic Party agree with the Trump administration regarding? Yes, I have heard some of them say, oh, well, he's done some good things on immigration. What good things? Sending innocent people to torture chambers? Democrats are so fucking like scared of being considered soft on crime or soft on immigration. This shit goes back to like the 80s and 90s. And so they'll agree so that they're not perceived to be soft on these issues. And I'm just like, this is not how we handle our immigration system. Like, it just is not. So, yeah, I do think that there are many, too many, that agree with what is going on. Here are some other books. I love this. Thank you, Jimmy. Other questions? Oh, thank you, Norma. This is a nice question. What was the most enjoyable / memorable experience of your recent European trip? So yeah, as those of you know, I was in London and in Paris a couple of weeks ago, and the trip was just fantastic. But one of the best parts was a day trip to Paris to go to the Pompidou Museum, um, to see the Paris Noir collection, which was like this incredible Black exhibit with so many incredible Black cubists and surrealists and collage and sculptors through the period of those that came from the Black diaspora between 1950 and 2000. It was extraordinary. And we took the train specifically to go and see the exhibit because it ends, I believe, at the beginning of July. So it was absolutely worth the trip. And if you've never been to the Pompidou, it's so cool. It was my second or third time there, where the outside, like the inside is on the outside of the building. Like, it's just a wild building. Totally Google Pompidou. It's very, very cool. Thank you for asking. Looking for questions. Oh, Danielle, what does Rubio have to say about that April 24th being Cuban of immigrants himself? They don't give a fuck, right? Like, his people aren't going to be deported. His family isn't going to be deported. It is just like these people who are children of immigrants that like believe that their power resides in their proximity to whiteness is extraordinary to me. And Rubio is that person. So is Cruz, right? You know who I was thinking about the other day, y'all? Where's Tim Scott? Has anybody heard from Senator Tim Scott, the I love Donald Trump, right? Where are all the blacks for Trump now that he has erased Black history and like did not appoint one Black person inside of his entire cabinet? Where are they now? So fascinating. Ooh, another good one. Nikki Giovanni, one of my favorite poets. Samara and folks, you are getting a list here. Y'all are so good. This is why I know that Damnation is the best, because you all read the same stuff that I read. And if you don't, and then you're just enlightening me to other things that I need to read. And I love it so much. Oh, this is a good question, James. Do you think white people have the collective strength to maintain a prolonged protest movement against Trump and his fascism? James, I wrote about this on Substack. I think like last week, and I don't know. That is a question for white folks. I really do not know, because I naively thought that following the death of the murder of George Floyd, that this was going to be that moment during COVID was going to be the, great white awakening. And it wasn't. It lasted a few months and then everybody went back to business as usual. So I don't know. That's the question, truly. All right, folks, I'll take two more. Question is dismantling white male supremacy. In dismantling white male supremacy, how did you imagine it was going to play out? I don't know, because I feel like we've been trying to dismantle this before I was born. How do I imagine it playing out? I guess I imagine that we would get to a place where we could operate from a foundation of abundance, right? Where white men, cis men, would not feel threatened by people of color, right? By women, by queer people. Entering into spaces and finally getting access into spaces that they have been blocked from. And I was wrong. Right. So, I don't know how it will play out, and I don't know if it will ever actually play out. Last question. Danielle, have you seen any content from Angela of Park Rose Permaculture? She is also calling for a general strike. No, I have not. And I am going to write their name down and look them up because I would like to see what they are talking about. So thank you so much. Permaculture. All right, folks. This was a fantastic Town Hall Tuesday. I mean, they usually are, but I love the fact that you all are providing, books and authors and poets in the chat for each other. I encourage folks that are watching this after to really look through, create your own syllabus, right? Like we should all be dedicated to unlearning the lies of America and understanding truly the experiences of other people. Like that's how we're going to move forward at a time, I keep saying this, that education and intellect are being criminalized. The greatest weapon that you have is your thought, is critical thinking. And so activate that in every which way possible. To all of you that were able to give today, I appreciate you so much for your super chats and your super thanks. Again, this is independent media. You all help keep the lights on for me. And I appreciate that so very much. I will be back here tomorrow, dear friends, 5 p.m. Eastern. I have some videos up. I have also some shorts up, so do make sure that you check that out. And if you have not subscribed, please do hit the subscribe button and then follow it with the little bell so that you never miss an episode. As always, dear friends, power to the people and to all the people power. Get woke, stay sane, and in these extraordinarily dangerous times, dear friends, do stay safe. I will see you back here tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern. Be well.